Hi, I'm Emily. Welcome to my channel where we help each other become better at work and in life in general. Saying no doesn't come naturally to us people. We don't want to be labeled as someone who is uncooperative or hard to work with. A lot of us are generally terrified of saying no and that someone might not like them because of that. But the problem is that not saying no can create a lot of problems. By taking on too much work, you might end up in a situation where you have too much things to do and you can't deliver on what you have promised that you're going to do. And if you keep doing this repeatedly, you're just going down the rabbit hole of ending up in a place where people are gonna think that, oh, Emelie, she's such a great person. She always helps with everything. We can ask her. Which could be great that you're seen as someone who is helpful and always saves the day. But in reality, you might become a person that people use when they feel that something is hard or they don't want to do it themselves, but they know that you're always there for them and you will save the day. And yeah, they'll probably just use you. And we don't want to end up there. We want to be able to learn to say no when we need to and say yes when we absolutely want to. And you know that being used is not that common, but it's the worst case scenario. Maybe you're already that person, but you don't want to be that anymore. So we're gonna learn how to say no as a collective group here. The first thing you need to do is actually choosing when to say no and when to say yes. So first of all, when someone comes and asks you, hey, can you do this? You need to assess their question on what they're actually asking. Try to understand how long will the task take to complete? How difficult is it? Is it really important? Or do you have more important things that you need to be doing right now? You need to understand what their expectations of you are. So ask follow-up questions. When do these need to be completed? Maybe it's in a week and you thought that it needed to be done today. In that case, well, maybe you can say yes now and you thought that you needed to have to say no because you don't have time today. And if someone says, complete this task before the day is done, well, ask them of what quality they need to have the task done. Maybe their expectations of you is not that the task should be fully completed, but they just want a draft of that presentation. They just want a draft of an email or something that you need to do. Maybe your thought on what the task is going to be like is totally different from what they expect you to do. So make sure to always communicate and ask questions, and they will also understand where you're coming from. Because if you start to ask questions and they need to clarify what they mean and what the task includes, they might also start asking questions back. Okay, do you have a lot of work to do? Can you really do this? And then you get a good dialogue going, and maybe they end up doing it themselves or asking someone else because they realize that, oh, this person has a lot of things to do. Maybe it's not the right time to ask them. When someone asks you to do something, you need to assess for yourself, do you want to say no? And or do you need to say no? Could you, for example, prioritize down something else, or maybe could someone else do it? Maybe Tim over at accounting is super good at this thing and it would take him half an hour and it would take you 2 hours. Well, then maybe the first thing you should do is to tell the person to go ask Tim instead, because you know that Tim is a pro at this and he likes these sort of things. Also, if the person that is asking you knows a lot about your work, you can ask them to help you prioritize. Okay, I see now that you come with task X. Is this more important than task Y that I am working on right now? And that way, maybe they can help you a bit in deciding on what is most important and what is not so important. Something that you need to think about is that you just can't say no because you're unmotivated or feeling lazy or just in general don't want to do the thing. We all need to do things that we don't want to do. And not wanting to do something is not a good enough reason to not do it, if you know what I mean. Of course, there's a limit to this, that some things you ethically and morally shouldn't do. But if it's just because you're feeling lazy and just think the task is boring, that's not really a good enough reason to say no. Saying no one time is not gonna affect the way that people look at you. But repeatedly saying no because you feel unmotivated or the task is boring, that is gonna label you as a negative person, unfortunately. And you don't want to end up in that hole, so saying no a few times in a week is totally fine, but saying no all the time, that is when it's going to start to be a problem for you. So you probably have quite a long way to go before someone starts viewing you as uncooperative or negative. But carefully reasoning and assessing what the task is like, and if you actually can do it, if you have time to do it, or if you have more important things to do, that's just gonna be helpful for everyone, and it's only considered as something positive. The easiest way to do this in practice is to know your schedule in and out and know what important things you have ahead of you. Time blocking is a good recommendation that you can use because that will help you in being better at estimating how long time tasks will take, and it will also help you see if you have any spots in your schedule that you actually have time to do that task. If your schedule is full, then you're going to have to prioritize down something else in order to do that task that you're asked for. You can check this video out if you want to learn more about time blocking. Also, doing all of these steps are really important even if you know that it's something that you do want to say yes about. Because saying yes to something also means saying no to something else. And then when you do say no, how do you make sure that you always come across in a good way? I think that the first and the best way to make sure that you come across in a good way is to make sure that you're being straightforward when you're saying no. Avoiding the question and just ghosting the person, that's not a good way to say no. It's so much better that you're clear and have a good reasoning about why you say no in order to avoid miscommunication. Try to get the person to understand why you're saying no, because if you're not, maybe they will come with another task that they think that you should complete, but you gave a bad reasoning for why you couldn't do the other one, so now you have to do that one. Or the other way around, you say no to a task because, oh no, I've just so much to do. So then they won't ask you about the fun thing that they also need help with, but that you really want to do, but now you don't get the question. So being clear in your intentions and your reasonings is a really good way to actually say no about something. But don't be overly transparent, obviously. I mean, how many times have you yourself actually been disappointed when someone said no? Probably a few times, but most of the times when you understand why they're saying no and understand the reasoning behind it, you're going to accept it and you're going to help each other solve the thing anyways. So make sure to explain why you're saying no. Maybe it will impact all of your other work. Maybe it could be that with those prerequisites that are given, you're not going to be able to complete it with good enough quality and in time so that you can actually be proud of what you've done. Or if the reasoning is that you're just not feeling like it, well, maybe you should reassess, because as I said, we all have to do things that we don't want to do, and just sucking it up and doing it sometimes is really good for you. And when you do this, don't over-explain and don't lie, because that is going to come back to bite you later on. For example, if it's something personal that you have to prioritize, like it's someone's birthday or you just have that party or event that you've been looking forward to go to for like forever, you don't have to say that that's the reason to why you're unavailable. That's just going to make people think that you don't want to do your work properly, and that's not something that we want to get across. But just simply state that I'm not available after 3 on Tuesday, so if you want my help with this, I can either do it before lunch on Tuesday or I can help you with it on Wednesday. See? It's not more difficult than that. Sometimes we get questions about things that are clearly not in your job description, and using that as a reason can be quite hard, and it's hard to get that to come across in a good way. Saying that I'm not going to do this because it's not part of my job is going to make you look unhelpful, because all of us have to do things that are not part of our jobs sometimes. So what you could do then is try to come up with another person that could be doing the task instead that is more suitable to do it. Or if, for example, you're the youngest person at your department and people just continuously come to you with mindless tasks that they just don't want to do themselves, you could try saying that I'm sorry, I don't have the time to do that for you. However, I would love to show you how you can do it so that you can do it yourself. That way you're hopefully getting rid of a problem and they don't have to come to you anymore with that. You're being really clear about what you think, but you still come across as happy and helpful. Which leads us into the most important thing that I believe that you can do in order to come across as helpful, which is trying to propose an alternative. Instead of just saying, nope, I can't do this, sorry, try to help them come up with a solution that could help them. This will really make sure that you look helpful and that you're a solution-oriented person. Maybe you could offer to do a small part of the task. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have time to complete the whole thing, but maybe I can do this part of the task and you can do the rest, and then I could just send you that input. That is a great way to offer to help without having to do the whole thing. Maybe you could think about it, and as I said before, maybe you could do it on a different time. I'm sorry, I don't have the time today, but I could help you tomorrow if that's something that would work for you. Maybe you know someone else that could help them instead of you. Maybe Tim over at accounting. He's really good. Or maybe you know of some tools or methods or material that you could send to the person to help them make it a bit more easier. In the beginning, where you're trying to find out your way of saying no and try to be more better at it rather than just accepting everything that comes your way, you could try using some of these avoidance tactics. Because when you try it out and try to say no and practice, you're going to become a lot better and it's going to come more easily and more naturally to you. So what do I actually mean with avoidance tactics? Well, instead of just confronting the person head on, you can try to go around it. It's not something that I would recommend doing too often or doing for the rest of your life, but it's a good way to say no when it just seems too hard for you. The first and most easiest way of saying no is just by simply not saying yes. When your manager asks the team who can arrange this year's team building, don't be the first person to raise your hand. Be really strategical about those times, because everyone needs to pitch in sometimes, but you don't have to be the person always doing it, and you can pick and choose the things that you actually enjoy doing. Maybe someone else loves arranging team buildings and you absolutely hate it. Then you shouldn't be saying yes to arranging team buildings, but you can say yes when they ask someone to do the next marketing plan, for example. So think about this, especially us young women that always want to be helpful, always want to be there for everyone. We don't have to. And we don't have to always be the person that ends up helping in those situations. So just try it out. When that dead silence hits, don't be the first one to raise your hand and say yes. If saying no on the spot is just too difficult for you, another avoidance tactics that you can use is to say that, I'm sorry, I need to think about this for a while. Can I do that and then come back to you? Doing this will help you come up with a good strategy on what reasons you should use to say no if that's something that you find hard to come up with on the spot. And this could also be a way to actually assess the question that they're asking you. You might not know what your schedule is like for the next week, so this is a way to find out if you actually have the time and energy to complete that task and help them with it. But the thing you need to be really clear about with this is in how much time you're going to get back to them. Because the longer you wait, the more they're going to expect that you are going to help you with them. So by making sure that you say that, I'm sorry, I have to think about this and get back to you. Can I get back to you tomorrow? Or I'll get back to you in an hour. That is certainly going to help you a lot and give you more time to think about the question and come up with a good answer to give if you actually do want to say no. So to summarize, firstly, think about when to say no and when to not say no. Make sure to assess the whole situation. And when you do say no, make sure to explain the situation briefly, offer another solution to their problem, and be straightforward. And if you think it's too difficult in the beginning to use these other tactics, try the avoidance tactics to begin with to make it a little bit better at saying no. If you want to learn other tips and tricks that senior business women wish that they had learned early on in their career, you can watch this video where I go through some of the best things to learn early on in your career. If you like this video, I would love it if you would considering to subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day and I'll see you next week.